This video is of an actual 1965 test given to auto repair students attempting certification after attending classes. There are 8 sections, each with 10 questions. We will cover the first 2 sections, tires and batteries, and the answer will be given after a short pause. See if you can pass.
Number 1. The ply rating of a tire. A is the number of plies. B may be greater than the number of plies used, provided the plies are of rayon or nylon. C, if not related to the strength of the tire. The answer is B. Rayon or nylon plies could result in a higher rating due to the rating being based off cotton plies. Tubeless tires are A, generally considered less safe than tube-type tires. B, no longer used as original equipment on new cars. C, more likely to develop a slow leak than to blow out. The answer is C. Tires with tubes had many issues, but underinflation was a tube killer, and chafing, pinching, etc. And when the tube popped, the rapid loss of pressure along with high speeds would cause the casing to often blow out, and a corner of the car would drop 5 or 6 inches rapidly. Underinflation of tires, A, affects vehicle ride, not tire mileage. B, causes the tread to wear excessively in the center. C, affects the tires in the same way as overloading of the vehicle. The answer is C, and the outer edges of the tire will experience more wear. Tire pressure is important. A, only for high-speed driving. B, only for heavy cars. C, on all cars at all times. The obvious answer to this gimme question is C, all cars at all times. When installing tube-type tires, A, remember that incorrect mounting is a major cause of tube failure. B, 2 screwdrivers may be used in place of tire irons. C, it is always best to use an old tube in a new tire. Another easy one. A is the answer. Tires should be rotated periodically to equalize uneven wear due to A, seasonal changes in driving habits. B, different functions served by front and rear tires. C, very low air pressure used in tires today. The fairly obvious answer is B. Rear wheels experience more wear, typically. Safety rims differ from drop-center rims in that A, a safety rim has a small hump on the inner surface of the bead seat. B, tire irons should only be used on a safety rim wheel to pry the tire beads from rims. C, safety rims require the use of special tires. A little trickier, but the answer is A. The safety rims quickly introduced safety beads to stop a tire that lost pressure from slipping to the inside of the rim and shredding itself and experiencing essentially a blowout. When inflating a tire after reassembly, A, never inflate above the recommended driving pressure. B, do not remove the valve core from a tubeless type tire. C, if a tube is used, the tire should be deflated once to locate the tube properly. Another tricky one. The answer is C. The tube should be deflated again to allow the stem to correctly seat. No wrinkles or folds occurred and allow the tube to seat evenly. This step took time, was often not done due to that fact. When mounting and demounting tubeless tires, A. No special precautions need be observed. B. Use extra care to avoid damaging the tire beads because they serve as air seals. C. It is not necessary to mark the tire and wheel rim with wax crayon. The answer is B. Obviously, don't trash the beads. Many mechanics in a hurry demounting your tires would cause damage to the bead area, and your tire would never hold good air again. When demounting captive air tires A, use a hammer or tire irons to loosen tire beads from wheel rim. B. Remove the safety shield first before removing the tire from the wheel. C. A bead unseating tool must be used. The gotcha question. This one would get you if you were not listening in class. The answer is C. Captive air tires were developed by Goodyear and utilized a run-flat inner tire liner, essentially a double tire. Goodyear sold a special bead unseating tool, which is essentially a bead breaker, since the bead was secured so tightly.
That's the end of the tire quiz. Now let's move on to batteries. This one might be a little trickier.
Each cell in an automotive battery contains A, either all negative or all positive plates. B, an electrical capacity of about 3 volts. C, an electrolyte composed of sulfuric acid and water. The answer is C, sulfuric acid and water, which is still true today, although the electrolyte is locked into a glass mat or gel, so it is sealed and does not require maintenance. In operation, a battery A is a storehouse of electricity. B is filled with an electrolyte solution which absorbs acid from the plates as the battery is discharged. C converts chemical energy into electrical energy. The answer is C, chemical energy into electrical energy. The life of a battery is increased by A, an accumulation of electrolyte and dirt on top of the cell covers. B, always keeping the battery fully charged. C, occasionally allowing the electrolyte level to fall below the tops of the plates. The fairly obvious answer is B, keeping a battery fully charged. Evidence of an overcharged battery is A, slow cranking and dim lights. B, need for water at frequent intervals. C, frequent burning out of light bulbs. The answer is B, rapid water loss due to boiling occurs when overcharging a serviceable flooded battery. Other symptoms include swelling, bulging, higher temps, leaking, and rapid corrosion buildup. The reason for conducting a load test is A, to determine the battery's internal condition. B, to double-check the specific gravity reading. C, to determine the rate of battery self-discharge. The answer is A, to determine the battery's internal condition. When making a specific gravity test, A, draw in only enough electrolyte to freely suspend the hydrometer float. B, completely fill the hydrometer with electrolyte. C, the temperature of the electrolyte is not important. The answer is A. Only draw in enough electrolyte to lift the float. Before charging a battery A, do not add water. B, add water to the proper level. C, remove the cell caps. The fairly obvious answer is B. Make sure the water level is correct. When comparing two batteries, A, workability is determined by the number of plates and the size of each plate. B, physical size can be used as a measure of ability. C, the advertised number of plates is always the total number of plates in the battery. The answer is A, the number of plates and the size of each plate. When installing a new battery, it is important, A, to check the old battery for evidence of sulfation. B, to replace battery cables in good condition. C, that the new battery be fully charged. The answer is C. A little tricky, but you wouldn't replace good battery cables. But C should probably include clean and inspect battery cables. When charging the battery in a car equipped with an alternator, A, charge the battery as usual. B, remove the battery cables before attaching the charger cables. C, connect the charger cables in reverse polarity. The answer in the book is B, which is wrong. 1965 cars typically should be charged with the cables attached. Not doing so could send feedback into the alternator or other issues if any other wire were connected or ground was made. It would be best to bench charge a battery if you were disconnecting the cables attached to the battery.
Did you pass? Want to see more? Let me know in the comments. Also, maybe confirm or deny that last question. I am pretty sure B is wrong unless you are bench charging. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this one.